surprised as to how unique Saheeli Radiant Creator is as a run-of-the-mill artifact commander. Not only is Saheeli introducing energy into the package, but also the synergies alongside Artificers and creating tokens adds a whole other element of deck building for this commander. And in this video, I wanted to go over an upgrade path, provide to you some key cards that you can look to when it comes to not only producing energy, but going down the route of Artificers and artifacts, looking to use your graveyard, have some recursion, copy some abilities, and do anything and everything to your heart's desire. Now, again, with many of my upgrade videos, this isn't a whole list, but if you want to see a updated list, an upgrade path for Saheeli for the full 99, let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to do a follow-up video for that, as again, we are only going over key cards that I think really benefit in terms of you adding it to the list. But we do have to talk about the commander first and foremost. Saheeli Radiant Creator is 1 green, blue, and red for a legendary creature, human artificer 4/4. And when you cast an artificer or artifact spell, you get 1 energy. So you have the idea of an additional resource system added into this, but also the artificers are actually really interesting. There's over 100 artificers in the game of Magic, specifically in these colors, and they synergize really well not only with artifacts, but a little bit of graveyard recursion, cost reduction, and copying abilities, not only just artifacts. So there are so many ways to approach this just off of building around artificers. But Saheeli's second line of text is also really important as well. At the beginning of combat on your turn, so you're not getting any shenanigans on your opponent's combat, remember that, you may pay 3 energy. Notably, this is only happening once, so you're not going to be able to pay multiple amounts of energy. So be very careful as to how much you're building around energy in this commander without having other payoffs. When you do this, create a token that's a copy of target permanent you control, except it's a 5/5 artifact creature in addition to its other types and has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So not only are you creating a supercharged version of any permanent, doesn't have to be a creature, could be an enchantment, could be a planeswalker, but you're also turning it into a creature, opening it up, an artifact creature, to different types of removal, which, you know, artifacts and creatures are, relatively speaking, pretty easy permanent types to deal with. But also having haste allows you to tap, activate, attack with that almost immediately. So you can go the aggressive route, make aggressive tokens, but you can also go with the route of activated abilities, a lot of mana, and just using things immediately. So again, there are many ways to build this commander and how you want to think about it. I'm going to go a little bit classical here. So let's go into the first category, and that's going to be around artificers themselves. Again, over 100 artificers in these colors. I just want to go over a couple. Firstly, Aetherdrift, Mathematical Genius, is blue and 1 for a legendary creature, human artificer 1/1, and it says blue and 2, tap this to copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. So obviously we're going to be able to copy the ability on something like the Saheeli. If we didn't want to copy that, we could copy that on something that we create a copy of to even further that ability. And then on top of that, which is nice, you can still pay blue and 1, sacrifice the Aetherdrift to counter target activated or triggered ability. So you can tap and activate this copy and then still activate the counter ability on the Aetherdrift himself. So that's really nice. You still get the access to both sides of the ability, keeping that in mind. It's a simple 1/1. So if you were to create a copy of this, then I guess you could create, you know, and you could create copies of other activated or triggered abilities. Maybe there's an activated or triggered ability that you want to counter beneficially on your end. So there's a couple things that you can do with it, but again, this is more so to synergize and create more copies of what you're copying with Aetherdrift. The next artificer is going to be Arkham Dagson, blue and 3 for a 2/2 legendary creature, human artificer. Tap, target artifact creature's controller sacrifices it. So this is nice. It's not target artifact, it's target artifact creature. So you are going to be creating copies of those as 5/5s. And then that player may search their library for a non-creature artifact card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So if you're playing Artifact Toolbox, which I think I'm kind of building into here, then you're going to be able to grab big artifacts, key artifacts, and just find things that you need at that moment. That's the beauty of artifact decks. They end up being toolbox pieces because there's a lot of artifacts out there with static abilities that give your artifacts indestructible or just give blanket effects to other artifacts that you control. And so there are many ones that you would want to tutor up in this case. And so the whole idea of spirit of the format and tutors is a whole other thing. I tend to lean on the more powerful side of things. So having a restricted tutor here is kind of nice. You have to sacrifice a artifact creature to get a non-creature artifact is kind of nice. I feel like that kind of beats the whole idea of, you know, turning this into a vampiric tutor or whatever, but it kind of works really well. And again, is an artificer to enable your energy generation for your Saheeli. Next up is going to be Brutaclad Telkar Engineer, 4 blue and red for a 4/4 legendary artifact creature artificer. Creature tokens you control have haste, so I mean a little redundant there, but there are going to be other abilities likely in your deck that create creature tokens, and so giving them haste is going to be great. But also at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 mirror blue mirror artifact creature token. Then you may choose token you control. If you do, each token you control becomes a copy of that token. So whatever you create with the Saheeli, you know, this says at the beginning of combat, so the Saheeli is going to trigger at the same time, because Saheeli's wording specifically, it says at the beginning of combat. It's not like after you attack, before you block or anything. These two are going to trigger at the same time. So you can pile them in such a way where you create your token with the Saheeli, then Brutaclad triggers to then create the 2/1 and make all tokens the same permanent. So if you have some type of permanent with a crazy activated ability, crazy attack trigger or something like that, Brutaclad is obviously just like a really good commander that many of you are aware of, but is going to be a great way to take advantage of those tokens that you're already creating. So there already are artificers and other creatures that enter the battlefield and create Thopter tokens and stuff like that. So why not turn those into other crazy big permanents? So Brutaclad is, in my opinion, in this version, going to be a bit of an auto include. Next up in this section, I want to talk about like energy and a little bit of production with energy. I think you don't really need to go too heavy into this. If you have your commander out, that's really going to be the primary focus of your win condition. You want to have Saheeli out creating energy on the back end, but also if Saheeli does die, or you know, you need to wait before casting Saheeli, you need to set up a little bit, then these cards might act as that extra energy to use the turn you cast Saheeli. You're going to have energy to take advantage of. So Electro Siphon is a really big one. Blue and red for an instant. Counter target spell, you gain an amount of energy equal to that, equal to its mana value. So even if you just counter like a 3-mana rock, a 4-mana rock, or some type of 4-mana creature, 5-mana creature, you're gonna have more than enough energy to not only use with Saheeli, but with any other activated or energy payoff that you might have in the deck. So Electro Siphon, just a great little include as a little counter spell to gain some energy. Aether Swooper kind of doubles up here. I could have included this in the Artificer section, but surprisingly, this actually isn't included in the deck list. Blue and 1 for a 1/2 creature Vidalcan Artificer, flying, and whenever Aether Swooper enters the battlefield, you get energy. And so when you cast this, not only are you going to gain an energy, but then it ETBs gains energy. So this by itself will give you the energy that you need to trigger the Saheeli. And then whenever Aether Swooper attacks, you may pay energy if you do create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. So if you wanted to go that route, you have the Brutaclad out as we were previously talking about. This is a great way to further enable that. But there are actually a bunch of creatures. There are some in the deck currently, but there are other energy generators that have these ETB effects where when you play them, they are artificers, or at least just ETB to create amount of energy. And those are great cards to recur, flicker, bounce, and just cast over and over again. So you might want to look into putting a couple of those if you're going the energy route more so. But I like a card like this being able to just cleanly give you that 3 when Saheeli is out. The one of the last ones I want to talk about, this is Bespoke Battle Wagon. Blue and 3 for a 5/6 artifact vehicle. So you can tap, get 2 energy. So this is just going to be something continuous, but obviously is an artifact spell that you can, you know, kind of gain energy off the top of. Then you can tap, pay energy to tap target creature. You can pay 3 energy by tapping it and draw a card. And then you can do this as many times as you want, but you can pay 4 energy, and Bespoke Battle Wagon becomes an artifact creature until the end of the turn. Obviously you don't want to do that multiple times, but if there's some reason to get rid of your energy, then Bespoke Battle Wagon is a great way to just have it become a creature and just get in for a little bit of swinging. But also is a pretty sweet permanent to kind of copy with haste, because yes, it can generate you some energy. So if you need to kind of save some up and use them for a big payoff later down the line, Bespoke Battle Wagon is great for that. One of the last ones that I want to talk about is going to be the Motherlode Excavator. Red and 3 for a 5/5 legendary artifact creature robot. When the Motherlode Excavator enters the battlefield, choose target opponent. You get an amount of energy equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls. Now, obviously, this is going to get better and better and more like higher power pods, but this might not be the most like competitive build for a super high power pod. So that like 6-7 table might just be good in those multiplayer tables. Whenever the Motherlode attacks, you may pay 4 energy. When you do, destroy target non-basic land defending player controls, and creatures that player controls without flying can't block this turn. So this is a great way. This is actually a great payoff to just go in and wipe someone. You're going to be able to kill a key land that they have that's generating them some value. Maybe it's something that's preventing you from doing damage, or untapping like a legendary you control, whatever it might be. Get rid of that land, but also swing in then with your Brutaclad, with your tokens, with whatever you copy, like all that stuff. The Motherlode Excavator is a great energy payoff if you happen to have extra. So this is a great card not only to enable your artifact synergies, but a great card that, you know, when it enters the battlefield, like, yes, Saheeli wants you to cast cards, but this is actually a great card to recur with something like Goblin Welder, which is an artificer, by the way, that you can, you know, kind of return some artifacts here and there. You can keep having this enter, create a bunch of energy with some untap shenanigans to untap the welder, return this over and over again, create a bunch of energy. When it attacks, you may pay 4, destroy some lands, make your cards almost unblockable at that point, and just go in for the win or a huge amount of damage, maybe for someone to finish off after the fact. So a great payoff, great artifact, a lot of things working in favor of this card. In the next section, I want to talk about artifact specific synergy. So again, in all of these card categories that I'm talking about so far, there are so many things that you can take advantage of. Like affinity for artifacts is like one of these like auto include mechanics already in the deck, but maybe, you know, not all artifacts are going to have that, and maybe you don't want to include too many of them, but you could include some other things like Ethereum Sculptor, blue and 1 for a 1/2 artifact creature, Vidalcan Artificer. Artifact spells you control that you cast cost 1 less to cast. Great. So we have a reducer that's also an artificer. So you're gaining energy. It's also an artifact. So you're like, I don't believe this actually triggers twice. I believe it only triggers once. So you only get 1 energy off of this, but it will make your artifact spells cost 1 less, allowing you to gain more energy. Enthusiastic Mechanon. Red and blue for a 2/2 artifact creature, Goblin Artificer, flying. Artifact spells you control that you cast. I keep saying control. Cost 1 less to cast. Again, another artificer that will gain you energy, that will make your artifact spells cost 1 less. Great. The last one that I want to talk about that synergizes with the other two is Foundry Inspector. If you have all 3 of these out, your artifacts cost 3 less to cast. Foundry Inspector is a construct. It's an artifact creature construct, so it's not going to have that Artificer synergy, but artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Again, is really sweet. It's a 3/2. So if you have a lot of big artifacts, which are really valuable in a deck like this, if you have a tutor package, these are the type of permanents that you want to be copying with something like Saheeli's ability. So Foundry Inspector is just not only going to be able to help you cast your artifact spells cheaper, but your big payoffs likely a lot easier as well. Another great payoff in this deck, especially once you start getting like artifacts really cheap or getting them really reduced, you're casting multiple spells a turn. Something like Joyar Weatherlight Captain is great. Red, blue, and 2 for a 3/3 legendary creature human artificer. Again, triggering your energy. Whenever you cast a historic spell, draw a card. Historic spells are artifacts, legendaries, sagas are historic as well. So if you have other legendary cards that are enabling some of your other synergies, obviously you're going to have artifacts, so not only are you going to be able to gain some energy, but also draw some cards, which is really good. I mean, artifact decks, affinity for all you constructed players, don't necessarily struggle with drawing cards. There's a lot of cards out there that draw cards in affinity. It's one of the bigger downsides with the deck. You constantly need to be drawing. And so artifacts are going to be able to do this continuously. You want to be able to play cheap ones or reduce the cost of them. And so Joyra is going to be that great kind of middle finisher. Once you have like a reducer or 2, heck, even 3 out, you're going to be drawing and playing a lot of cards. One of the last payoffs I want to talk about with artifacts is Drafna, Founder of Latnam. Blue and 1 for a 2/1 legendary creature human artificer advisor. Hey, I'm telling you, the artificers are heat. Blue and 1, return target artifact you control to its owner's hand. The reason I like this is specifically with cards like Frogmite or Mirror Enforcer, cards that have affinity for artifacts that you can functionally just cast for 0. If you just pay 2, you can return that to your hand and then just gain a bunch of energy. So as much as you can pay for this activated ability, you can return it to your hand. There are synergies of cards that want you to play out cards from your hand or whatever it might be. Maybe you need to even just save an artifact spell. This is just a great way to do all of that at the same time. And then you can return it to your hand, cast it, and then you can pay 3 and tap it, copy target artifact spell you control. And that's what I love about this. So The first ability doesn't require you to tap the Drafna, but the second ability does. So you can bounce something, then cast it again, and then copy target artifact spell. So specifically, if it's a spell that has to be on the stack, it can't be like artifact permanent. So you can't copy something that's already out, but you can copy something that's on the stack. And it has to be a spell that you control, so you're not like stealing your opponent's stuff. But again, synergizes with itself, allows you to kind of copy like giant mirror enforcers or just like other artifacts that have value in multiples. So Drafna is going to be a great way to just like have that payoff, that good value engine that you have. And again, the two abilities synergize with itself, just a great design card, in my opinion. Again, Artificer on top, really cheap, just being 2 mana, just one of the better payoffs that you have access to when it comes to artifacts. Next up, I want to talk about lands, and these are my final 2 categories, not only upgrading the lands, but we're going to talk about payoffs as well. Firstly, we want to make sure that we are including the kind of basic artifact lands. They're not included in the base version of this deck, so you think of like Seed of Synod, the red one and the green one, all that stuff. Just artifact land, you tap it, they come in untapped. Some of the tapped artifact lands are already in here, but just include these untapped ones. They're great artifact synergies. They help with your affinity stuff. If you need to sacrifice artifact to return other ones, it's great to just get some value out of your lands. You don't want to get rid of your permanents, and so these are just great lands to just auto include in there. They're not too expensive. Something like Glimmer Void is also really valuable at the beginning of end step. If you control no artifacts, sacrifice Glimmer Void. Chances are in this type of build that I'm building it, like, you are gonna control some amount of artifacts. This has that risk in, you know, constructed formats like in Modern, where someone meltdowns you and then you just lose all your artifacts. Yeah, you're gonna lose your Glimmer Void, but that doesn't really happen as often, especially if people are just playing board wipes. You are going to have like an artifact land out or 2. Glimmer Void is just going to be this untapped source that can help you add 1 mana of any color. Even if you play it on your turn, you still get the ability to just use it. Then at the end step, you lose it. So it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not like something that doesn't work around something like Stony Silence or other like Karn the Great Creator nonsense. If your opponent's playing Karn the Great Creator in EDH, I mean, sure, you probably allowed them to rule 0 in like a sideboard to grab, but it's all an option. It's all there. Karn the Great Creator. Also, notably, there are a bunch of haters about Karn the Great Creator, but you can grab cards out of your own exile. So Karn the Great Creator actually is a tutor if you like exile a bunch of stuff out of your deck. Just saying. You don't need a sideboard, just saying. So Glimmer Void, great land option there. Archway of Innovation is another cool one, especially if you're creating a bunch of tokens. You're creating a bunch of like Thopter tokens. Archway of Innovation enters the battlefield tapped unless you control an island. You can tap and add blue, and then pay blue and tap this. And the next spell you cast this turn has Improvise, which means your artifacts can help cast that spell. Each artifact you tap for it, once you're done paying like the mana abilities, pays for 1 of it. So you can't pay for like the colored costs of things. Think of something like Kappa Cannoneer, which honestly is pretty solid in this deck. You are able to kind of cheat some things out. So if you have like enchantments, if you have planeswalkers that have like large costs and everything, then Archway of Innovation is going to be a great way to get some of those bigger spells out, especially cards that, again, don't have affinity for whatever. They don't have Improvise. Giving something Improvise, allowing your board to tap out to create it, and then Saheeli trigger to copy it and get some value is going to be really great in that sense. The last land I want to mention is on the expensive side in Urza's Saga, and this one's really in there for the toolbox side of things. It's on the expensive side because of constructed formats, but I just have like a real newfound appreciation for this after playing a ton of Legacy. And not only are you going to be able to create colorless construct tokens, but being able to search your library for that 0 or 1 cost that you're looking for, that graveyard hate spell, that like anti-tokens, whatever, like a haste enabler, whatever it is, playing that type of package in there is really powerful. But again, it's definitely a card that you can skip. I just personally like building my artifact decks like toolbox strategies. It's not really the type of permanent that you want to copy because it's going to enter with like on the first saga, and then you have to sacrifice it. So you're not going to be able to copy it and then like create like construct tokens unless you're able to increase the amount of tokens on it, you know, the counters on it, but that's not really what you're looking to do. This is just one of those value payoffs. You can definitely skip it. I have copies of it playing Legacy. Just include, if you have it, include it. Come on. It's just one of those all-time great artifact cards. In the last section, I want to go over payoffs for your Saheeli ability. So these are cards that you're definitely looking to copy as win conditions, as funny just pieces to just get the board going. There are so many options here. You could grab like big win cons, just fat creatures, just large things in general. Or you can go for something sneaky like Assault Suit. So at 4 mana, Assault Suit is an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, has haste, can't attack you or planeswalkers you control, and can't be sacrificed. Then at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you may have that player gain control of equipped creature until the end of the turn. If you do, untap it. Now, obviously the problem with this is like, okay, this is now like a 5/5 creature with like a 5/5 creature that you can equip on. That opens it up to a little bit more removal. But what's nice about this, on top of the fact that you can't attack with it, is that you are going to be able to create copies of Assault Suit and give other problematic things to your opponents to then let them do like their own nonsense with it. Notably, you can't sacrifice the thing that's equipped to it, but if you can destroy the Assault Suit that you copy, sure. But having like a little bit of a boost and not being able to attack you or planeswalkers you control, Assault Suit is just like a fun one in general. It's just a fun include. It's just a fun include. It's an artifact that you can tutor up. Obviously, you're getting energy off of it, and it just creates like a little bit of chaos throughout the table. I find it's a funny copy. Now, Volatile Stormdrake, blue and 1. I understand specifically that you're not going to be able to copy the Stormdrake, but maybe you want to copy the thing you steal with it. So let's walk through it. Blue and 1 for a 3/2 creature Drake. Flying, hexproof from activated and triggered abilities. This comes out of Modern Horizons 3. When Volatile Stormdrake enters the battlefield, exchange control of Volatile Stormdrake and target creature an opponent controls. It's not permanent creature, a little limited. If you do, you get energy, which is kind of nice. It's just a great energy generator. It's just a great energy generator for 2 mana. Then sacrifice that creature you swap control with, unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. So yes, this is another energy payoff, which is why I wanted to include it. It's a great way to just grab something like a win condition, steal it for yourself. Then you're going to be able to copy it with something like Saheeli if you have a ton of energy. Otherwise, just sacrifice the damn thing. It could just be a removal spell. You swap control, they get a 3/2 whatever, but then you're able to grab something. You sacrifice it, you get some amount of energy. The card can just be a bad removal spell, or it could just be something to steal, and at worst, it's just an energy generator. The card actually does a lot in this deck. Unfortunately, it's not an Artificer, it's a Drake. That's fine. It's not an artifact either, but honestly, a pretty decent win condition and a way to steal some things as well. One of the other win conditions that's great is Gonti's Aether Heart. 6 mana for a legendary artifact. Whenever Gonti's Aether Heart or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you get energy. What's nice about this is that you get energy on both sides. So Saheeli gives you the energy on cast. Gonti's is just a great permanent that gives you energy on the ETB. So you kind of double up on your energy. But also notably, this gives you 2. So it's actually a really cool permanent to copy, especially if you have a way to pay off for more energy. The problem is Gonti's Aether's Heart's ability that we're going to talk about in a second only allows you to do it once, because it says pay, what is that, like 8 energy, exile Gonti's Aether Heart. So you have to get rid of it, unfortunately. Take an extra turn after this one. This is a fantastic energy payoff. Copy this with Saheeli, pay the extra energy that you have, take an extra one. You still have the original Gonti's Aether Heart to continue to have other artifacts enter. If you're playing with that creature we were talking about earlier that allows you to pay to and return an artifact, play out your affinity for artifact creatures. You're getting a ton of energy off of this, and you're just gonna be able to almost go infinite on turns. You're pretty much gonna be able to go infinite on turns if you set up the right board. A great permanent to be copying with Saheeli. You're gonna exile the copy, doesn't matter, you still have the original, and then you can pop the original if you need a way to use it. But that's going to be my upgrade path for Saheeli Radiant Creator. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What are some key cards that I might have missed that you think are better than the ones that I mentioned? Because look, there are, again, just off of the Artificers alone, there are so many ways that you can build this. There are so many different cards in the 99 that you can include. You could go artifact centric. You could pay off with some energy. You could just go into the Artificers themselves. There's so many ways to go into this deck list. Let me know how you like to build something like this, and let me know in the comment section down below if you want to see the full version of this, if you want me to walk through a little bit of a deck tech with Saheeli Radiant Creator. I would love to do that as well. So a really cool commander that adds a little bit of extra to it because it now allows you to gain a little bit of energy, has that kind of affinity shenanigans, and allows you to copy quote unquote for free. Just an all around great commander, and just one that I'm excited to see in tables across from me soon.